Hello students, good morning. Myself Pushpendra Singh and we are going to start with our daily current affairs. So today you have 20th of April 2021 and for that we are going to start with our current affairs classes, and these classes, as you know, are very important for those students who are preparing for the civil services examination which is conducted by the UPSC, right, as well as other government competitive examinations. I hope you are studying the national newspapers like the Hindu or Indian Express. Both of these newspapers are equally good. You can refer any of these newspaper for your better preparation, right? And you can also supplement your preparation with the help of these lectures. So these lectures are uploaded on the YouTube, right, on the day-to-day basis, where you can go and subscribe our channel on the YouTube your for your these lectures, right? So let's begin with the lecture of current affairs. Okay, so first news is related to the new president of Cuba, right? So he is also the first secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba, which is basically, having, a civilian president. So he is basically the first such secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba, which is the main party of Cuba, right? Which is which has selected the first civilian person to head to this post of the secretary, which is the most powerful post in the Communist Party of Cuba. So his name is Miguel Diaz Canel, right? He is the person, or he is the current president of the Cuba. So the Cuba basically mark the end of an era, right? What is the end of era? Where you have some sort of a you know some sort of a power sharing between the similar brothers, or between in the similar in the family lines. So it was something that the power was first time transferred from a family, from a particular family, that is from Castro family, to the non-Castro clan that is outside of their family, right? That too, the Communist Party's first ever civilian leader, that is Miguel Diaz Canel, right? So Miguel Diaz Canel is basically a person, or who is a political leader in the Cuba, who does not belongs to the Castro clan, right? And he is the first ever civilian leader in the basically Cuba. So what is Cuba? So Cuba is also known as the Republic of Cuba. It is a country basically which is comprising the islands of Cuba, as well as it is also consisting of the Isla de la Juventud, which is also having some sort of a minor archipelago. These are all the archipelagos. And its location, the Cuba is located in the northern Caribbean. The Caribbean is basically a part, okay, where the Caribbean Sea, Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Ocean meet. If you just see the map, specifically the Atlantic Ocean part, so you see the Caribbean region, the Caribbean, where this Cuba is located, where the Caribbean Sea, right, Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Ocean meet. So Cuba is a country which is located over there. As you know that you have two most towering figure in the Cuba. The first is basically the Fidel Castro, right? And the second is Raul Castro. Both were basically both were basically brothers by blood, right? Both were basically brothers by the blood, and these two leaders are running, right, the country, right, since 1959 onward. So you can understand this Castro clan, which is basically almost ruling the country since 1950s onward, after the leader which is known as Raul Castro, who is at currently as 89 years of the age, have entered into the retirement. Now after his retirement, he has handed all powerful position, right, that is the secretary of the Communist Party of you know Cuba, to the first ever non-Castro clan person, who is Mr. Miguel Diaz Canel, who is currently 60 years of the old, and who is currently holding the post of the president of Cuba. All right, this person called Miguel Diaz Canel is basically a Cuban politician, right, who is also the president of Cuba, since 2019 onward, and is the first secretary, right, of the Communist Party of Cuba, right, from non Castro clan, and he is the most senior politician in the Cuba since 2021, definitely after retiring, the Raul Castro. The Raul Castro was basically the most senior politician, but after his retirement, now the Miguel Diaz-Canel will be the senior most, right, the politician. Now, as you know, the two predecessors means the two persons who has basically ruled the country Cuba, basically are the two brothers by blood. The first is basically, as you know, the Fidel Castro, that is the Fidel, right, his full name is Fidel Alejandro Castro, right, who is simply known as the Fidel Castro. And the second, and his successor was basically your Raul Castro. So he was and these were basically two brothers by blood, right, who basically ruled this country. Now this will have some sort of a dynastic form of succession that we have seen, but is the first time Miguel Diaz-Canel has basically non-dynastic form of succession after Castro brothers retired. So let me give you the brief introduction about Mr. Raul Castro. So Raul Castro's full name is Raul Modesto Castro Ruz. Raul Modesto Castro Ruz. He is basically a Cuban politician who is now retired, alright, and who served the first secretary to the Communist Party of Cuba. And also he was the most politician, right, in the Communist Party of Cuba from 2011 to 2021, right, and definitely he was the successor of his brother called Fidel Castro. Regarding Fidel Castro, let me give you a brief introduction also. The Fidel Castro's full name is Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz, right, who is also known as simply Fidel Castro. He was also the Cuban revolutionary leader. He was also the most towering politician figure, and who served the Prime Minister of Cuba from 1959 to 1976, right? And again, he was the President of Cuba from 1976 to 2008. So Fidel Castro was one of the longest serving, you know, the Prime Minister and the President in the Cuba, who hold the who hold the term of or who hold the position of the Prime Minister of Cuba from 1959 to 1976, and the president from 1976 to 2008, right? So the Diaz-Canel, right, who is the first president, definitely not belong to the Castro family, right? And definitely since the Oswaldo Dornelles in 1976, he was the first leader who is not from the Castro family, right? In since 1959. So that is just a brief introduction about him. Okay, so you can see here the right person, who is basically the Raul Castro, who has recently been retired, and the left person is basically the Miguel Diaz-Canel, right? Raul Castro and Miguel Diaz-Canel. Okay, let's move. Second news is the Council of European Union. Okay, so the Council of European Union approved, right, the European Union strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, right? I'll let you know what is this Indo-Pacific region and what is this European Union. First of all, you must understand there is a Council of European Union, just like the Parliament. So it is a Council of European Union which is approved, right, the cooperation or the strategy for the cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. The ultimate purpose of this strategy for the enforcement of the cooperation in the Pacific region is to enforce strategic focus to contribute to the regional stability and the security, right, specifically in the Indo-Pacific region at the time of certain challenges and the tensions which are rising in this region. Okay, so let me give you what is this European Union. So as you know, European Union is basically a political and economic union, okay, which is consisting of 27 member states. That means the European Union has 27 countries in its membership. Okay, and these 27 countries are primarily located in Europe, right? And it is having estimated population of around 447 million. Okay, now this Council of European Union, which is basically focusing on the Indo-Pacific region. What is this Indo-Pacific region? So sometimes this Indo-Pacific region is also known as Indo-Pacific Asia, right? Why? Because if you see the biogeographic regional aspect in this region, which is basically comprising of the tropical waters of Indian Ocean, the Western and the Central Pacific Ocean, right, as well as the seas which connect the two, specifically in the area of Indonesia. So you can clearly say that it does not include the temperate and the polar regions of Indian Ocean, as well as the temperate and the polar regions of Pacific Ocean, as well as it does not involve the tropical Eastern Pacific region also, right? So that is the most important difference between these two. Okay, so let's understand what is that high focus on the coordination and the cooperation. So council basically for that purpose has tasked the high representative and the commission, right, with having some sort of a joint communication on the cooperation, right, in the Indo-Pacific region by September 2021. Okay, now the European Union by this process would aim to promote, right, or aim to specifically promote a rule-based multilateral system where it will have the strong support to the ASEAN, which is a basically association of Southeast Asian nations, right, which is also stressed by the India. That is the most important part. Now, what is this ASEAN? So ASEAN is in the short form, that is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, right, which is a basically a regional organization that brings together some sort of a desperate neighbors. Why? To address the economic you know um, issues, the security issues, as well as some of the political issues, right? So what you can say is that the ASEAN is an intergovernmental organization which is currently having the 10 countries as its membership, and these 10 countries belongs to the Southeast Asian countries. For example, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Okay, now you must also understand that this ASEAN has the biggest success, right, in promotion of the economic integration among its members, right? And the ASEAN also helped to negotiate the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is also known as RCEP agreement, which is also one of the world largest free trade bloc, right? All right. Now, regarding the council, so Council of European Union is basically the third of the 7 institutions which are set up under European Union, right? And it has been listed in the treaty which have been set up this European Union. And now it is one of the 3 legislative bodies, right? And together with European Parliament, right, serve as the most important arm of the European Union to amend and approve the proposals of the European Commission, which is the main authoritative commission which hold some sort of a legislative initiatives. And this council was basically founded on the 1st July 1967. Okay, so you can look at the view of the council. Okay, next, the Vande Bharat mission. The Vande Bharat mission, as you know, is a government of India's mission. The main purpose of the Vande Bharat mission is to start the repatriating the Indians which are stranded abroad, right, because of the many reasons, because of the war, because of some sort of a pandemic. So main purpose main purpose of Vande Bharat mission is to bring back the Indians, or to simply to repatriating the Indians which have stranded abroad because of the war or because of pandemic. Okay, so for that purpose a Vande Bharat mission was started. Okay, now as you know, the recently because of coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic has also you know emphasized on the Vande Bharat mission to bring back the Indians which are basically stranded abroad, right? And because of the lockdown measures which have been imposed by the several countries in this right, in this COVID-19 since May 7, 2020, and it's turned out to be the largest evacuations of the civilians of any country in the world. Okay, now the government of India's flagship mission, which is Vande Bharat mission, is currently in the middle of a phase 10, and it is also the largest airlift program, right, which have airlifted around 1,10,000 people in 1990, right, specifically during Gulf War, right. So you can understand that the Gulf War, which was basically, I will tell you the brief about the Gulf War. The Gulf War was basically a war that was based by the coalition forces from at least 20, at least from 35 nations, right, which are led by the United States against Iraq. So it was a war which was led by the United States and its supporting members countries, right, from 35 countries, right, and definitely against the Iraq, if you remember Saddam Hussein. Okay, so it was a war that was led against the Iraq in a response to the Iraq's invasion and the annexation of Kuwait, right. So Iraq has basically attacked, annexed the Kuwait, right, which is basically the oil producing having areas. So it is because of some sort of a oil pricing and production related disputes which has led to this Gulf War, right. Okay, so the Air India group basically, which is a basically a public transporter which is run by Air India, has operated around 11,523 inbound flight to carry 18,19,734 passengers, and also 11,528 outbound flight, right, to carry around 13,68,457 passengers, right, which is one of the largest scale, right, airlift which have been taken place. Okay, now the national carrier, which is basically in the name of the Air India, is basically supported by the government of India. Okay, now carried off bulk of these air transfers, right, under this Vande Bharat mission. Definitely it is being supported by this budget carrier, that is Air India Express. Okay, now current Vande Bharat mission, which is the phase 10, has international and domestic schedules operating till October 31st, right. So various international and domestic, the flights will be operating in that, and Air India Express has used its fleet, that is B737-800, that is Boeing 737 aircrafts 800 fleet, to lift basically various agricultural produce, mainly the fruits and the vegetables, specifically to the West Asian countries Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, in this Vande Bharat mission itself. So it has done also this type of work. So, but you know that because of transportation bubbles, because of the travel related restrictions that have been imposed by many countries, so that has led to the severe shortage of those commodities, as well as, right, because of the not availability of the commercial passenger services, definitely impacted the huge diaspora which is residing outside. So this pandemic has brought the government of India to start the Vande Bharat mission to bring back the Indians which have stranded abroad, as well as to transfer some of the agricultural produce, right, to the West Asian countries like Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, etc. under this mission itself. Okay, next you have Ingenuity. The Ingenuity is basically, a helicopter which is basically currently flying, right, in on the surface of Mars. As you know that the NASA, which is a main space agency belongs to the USA, has sent, right, a mission to explore the possibility of life on the surface of Mars. In that mission, right, there are two components, or two main components. One is that basically known as rover, that is also called the Perseverance. The rover's name is Perseverance, right, and one helicopter, that helicopter name is Ingenuity. So it has two main component. The rover name is Perseverance and the helicopter's name is Ingenuity. Okay, so the NASA has recently announced that the Ingenuity, which is a helicopter, has performed the first flight on the surface of Mars. That too, the powerful aircraft on the surface of another planet, that is Mars. So as I told you that Ingenuity is basically a helicopter to fly on the surface of the Mars, which are carried by definitely by the NASA's rovers, that is Perseverance, right? And it was launched in July last year, and that was basically recently been landed on the surface of the Mars. The main purpose of the Ingenuity as well as the rover is to collect the samples from the surface of the Mars, right? And definitely, right, to bring back those samples whenever future missions occur. And this Ingenuity helicopter would reach to that location where the rover cannot reach, right? Because rover has some sort of a, the wheels which cannot reach to the some of the complex terrain, but Ingenuity, which is basically a flying aircraft or a helicopter, can reach out, right? So here the Perseverance, which is a rover, landed basically at the Z0 crater of Mars in the February this year. So what is this Z0 crater? So first of all, the Z0 crater is a crater on the Mars, right, which is basically, having the diameter of around 49 kilometer, right? So Z0 crater of a Mars having the diameter of around 49 kilometers, right? And here at the Z0 crater, it was thought to have, right, once that this crater once was flooded with the water, it was thought. And the crater also contains the Fen Delta deposits, right, that is rich in terms of clays, right? And the lake in the crater was also present, right, when some sort of a valley network would have been, present on the surface of Mars. So this Ingenuity as well as the rover would definitely, right, find out, right, in its mission that is around 2 years to look for finding some sort of a past signs of the life regarding this, on the surface of Mars. Okay, now the rover basically designed to study the signs of the ancient life on the surface of Mars. So rover will also collect the samples, and these samples might also bring back to the surface, right? Specifically during future missions if they have sent, right? If they will send, and definitely we will test the new technology that might also benefit the future robotic and human missions to the surface of Mars. And the Ingenuity, which is a helicopter, will have the flying capability. So it will have, the flying capability using the counter rotating blades, sorry, and which can spin, right, with around 2400 rotations per minute, right? So it can basically fly with that. And now the Ingenuity will have the wireless communication systems, and it has the equipment like computers, navigation sensors, as well as the cameras attached with them, right? It can send the signals, wireless communication signals to the NASA, as well as it is the solar powered, right, that can charge by itself. So it does not require some sort of a batteries, but it is basically the solar powered flight. Okay, now as you know that, the surface or the Z0 crater is basically very important for the scientists for the new for the new discovery. So it's a reasons geology to find out, to allow, right, to go specifically to those regions where the rover cannot go, right? So here, the astronauts also can explore the surface of the Mars with the help of these fact finding, the missions which have been sent by the NASA. And NASA will definitely try and demonstrate the rotorcraft flight, that too in extremely thin atmosphere of the Mars, because there you don't have the atmosphere, so extremely thin atmosphere, right, with the help of this helicopter. So that is the most important aspect of, this mission, which is also the most crucial mission, right, to the surface of Mars. So here you can see the left side you have the rover, Perseverance rover, and right side you have the Ingenuity helicopter, which is basically taking the first flight on the surface of Mars. All right. Next, you have the Charles Gask. What is the Charles Gask? If you know, the Charles Gask basically was the co-founder of Adobe. Adobe, the Adobe Acrobat document, that is the portable document format, that is also known as PDF, that is portable document format. Everybody using this PDF format on the earth, right? So it is the most widely used file format on the earth. The co-founder of Adobe was the Charles Gask, who was recently died at the age of 81 in the California, USA. So who was the Charles Gask? The Charles Gask was basically a co-founder of Adobe, right, who has developed this PDF, right, which is most widely used on the earth. So Charles Gask is basically an American businessman. He was also the computer scientist, right? And he was also known for founding the basics of the graphics and also the software company called Adobe Inc, right? With the another co-founder called the John Warnock in 1982. Okay, now this company is named after the Adobe Creek that is roughly around the 4.2 miles long northward flowing stream that is originating on the Black Mountain in the Santa Clara country, right, in the California, United States. Okay, regarding the history of the PDF, right, that is, as you know, that PDF is most widely used, the file format on the earth, right? It is used every day by millions of the people worldwide, right? It is used to save, to share the documents, right, like to research papers, flights, railway tickets. It is most widely used, right? So the project which was known as the Camelot project, which was started by the Warnock, who was the basically the co-founder of the Adobe in 1990s, right? Before 1990s, what happens is there was, right, there was not, we cannot share the documents seamlessly, right? In order to share these documents, specifically the PDF seamlessly, a project was started, that is Camelot project. Now this project was successful, right, which has led to in the development of this file format, right? That file format can be easily shared across different type of computer systems, like if, like for example, if you are using the Windows, or if you are using MacBook, right, any of these, right, you can seamlessly share this information, documents, right, between the, the operators or between the computers. So that is also most important, right? The seamless sharing and seamless sharing of this information in the PDF form. So he was basically the founder who is recently died. Okay, next, the India Germany agreement on the cities combating the plastic entering the marine environment. So as the name suggests, that there is an agreement between India and the Germany, specifically only in the few selected cities. The main purpose of this agreement is to combat or to, restrict the entering of the plastic materials, specifically in the marine environment. So India and Germany both signed an agreement specifically on the cities combating the plastic which is entering into the marine environment. So this agreement was signed between the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, that is MOHUA, Government of India, as well as the German Federal Ministry of Environment, which both have signed this agreement, which is a technical agreement or technical cooperation citing, or entitling the cities combating the plastic entering the marine environment. Definitely this project also in the line with the flagship mission which was also implemented by the government of India, known as Swachh Bharat mission. So one of the objective of the Swachh Bharat mission is also, sustainable solid waste management, right? So it is also the most important vision of our honorable Prime Minister of this country, Mr. Narendra Modi, right, to phase out the single use of plastics by 2022. So this is also the most important, right, in order to achieve one of the objective of Swachh Bharat mission. Okay, now this project, which is as was emphasized, right, as a joint declaration that was basically, that was basically done in 2019, specifically in the cooperation in the field of the prevention of the marine litter, that is signed between India and Germany in 2019, right? So this project, which is aimed at some sort of a prevention of the plastic littering or the plastics, materials or waste material entering into the marine environment, right? So that project is first of all will be taken at the national level as well as at the state level, and that too at the national level it is led by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. At the state level right? The the key states like Uttar Pradesh, Kerala, Andaman and Nicobar Islands are first to be taken, okay? And in the few selected cities like Kanpur, Kochi and Port Blair are basically selected in the first phase, right? That is for the period of 3.5 years for this purpose of prevention of this plastic which is entering into the marine environment. Okay, so this is the map. You can see the Germany map. So you can, Germany is also known as the Federal Republic of Germany. It is basically country in the Central Europe, right? So it is situated, you can see here very clearly, between the Baltic Sea, which is lying to the north, right? And specifically Baltic Sea and North Sea you have, specifically in the north, and you have the Alp mountain which lies, if you see the physical map, to the south, right? And it is basically having the population of around only 83 million people. Okay, now if you see the countries, the neighboring countries, it borders with Denmark, okay, to the north, okay. Then it also borders with the Poland, Czech Republic to the east, right? It also bordered with Austria, Switzerland to the south, and it is also bordered with France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands to the west. Okay. Now, in the Europe, the Germany is the second most populous country in the Europe after Russia. So the Germany's current population is around 83 million people, and definitely is the most populous in the European Union. And the capital is basically Berlin, right? The Berlin is also the largest city as well as the capital of Germany. Okay, next you have the World Liver Day. As you know, the liver is one of the organ in our body. So World Liver Day is observed every year on April 19th, right? Definitely the main purpose of observing the World Liver Day is to spread the awareness about the liver related diseases. Okay, now as you know, the liver is having the most crucial and most important functions. So it's the most complex and the largest organ in the body, right? And definitely it is a key player to keep our body's digestive system fit, right? And for that purpose, the theme for this year's the World Liver Day is keep our liver healthy and disease free, specifically, you know, on the occasion of the World Liver Day that is celebrated every year on the 19th April. Okay, next you have the SpO2. As you know, the SpO2, that is also known as the saturation of peripheral oxygen. Okay, now as you know that our soldiers are basically, have stationed in extreme high altitude areas, like you have, the glaciers specifically, right? In that glaciers, right, there is also, the most important aspect of this availability of the oxygen in the blood, right? Or the saturation or the percentage of hemoglobin that is saturated with the oxygen, right? That is to be measured, and that is we call them the saturation of peripheral oxygen. So the DRDO or Defense Research Development Organization has developed this SpO2, that is saturation of peripheral oxygen, to check the blood oxygen saturation, supplement oxygen delivery system specifically to the soldiers. All right, so that is the most important thing. Now the currently that can be measured by the oximetry or through the blood test, right? As you know that body needs that there is certain level of oxygen in the blood, right? Otherwise the body will not function, right? So that is the most important aspect, right? If you have very low level of the oxygen in the blood, that will have the very serious symptoms. For example, the very low level of oxygen in the blood is also known as the hypoxemia, right? And there is also some effects, like, it is visible effect on the skin, like, which is also known as the cyanosis, due to the blue tint that will be coming out on the skin, right? So the term called hypoxemia is basically is the term that is used to signify the low level of oxygen in the blood. Okay, so that turn out to be hypoxia. That is roughly, you can say that, you know the low level of oxygen in the tissues. So that will be, the most devastating and most, have the serious repercussions on the functioning of the body. Okay, and that is to be understood that for that purpose the SPO2 is basically developed by the Defense Research and Development Organization. Next, the Center for Land Warfare Studies, that is also known as CLAWS, right? So here the Center for Land Warfare Studies is basically an autonomous think tank, first of all, right, which is under patronage of Indian Army, have established a joint initiative with the Manipal Academy of Higher Education to conduct a PhD programs for army officers. That means the army officers would be undergone the PhD programs in Manipal Academy of Higher Education with the joint initiative with the Center for Land Warfare Studies. So Center for Land Warfare Studies, which is currently being headquartered or located in New Delhi, it is an independent think tank on the strategic studies and the land warfare in the Indian context, and it is being patronized by the Indian Army. The clause is registered as under the Society Registration Act 1860. All right. So let me give you the brief about the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. So the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, which is also known as MAHI, is a deemed university which is located in the Manipal, India. Okay. The university has its campuses in different places. For example, in the Bangalore, in the Jamshedpur, in the Melaka, as well as it is also having the campus in Dubai also. Okay, so the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, or MAHI, traces its root to the Kasturba Medical College, which is the country's first self-funded medical college, established in 1953. So the MAHI today offers more than 350 programs across 30 disciplines, and it was recently declared in 2018 the institution of eminence by the government of India. Okay, so the clause has taken this initiative definitely to enhance the professional military education of the officers, right, which are eventually getting benefited, right, to serving the country, and it is better equipping the military leaders with in-depth knowledge in the respective domains. So under this initiative, the clause have been recognized as a sub-center of the MAHI, right, by the virtue, and obviously the 5 of the clause faculties would serve also as a supervisor, co-supervisor, right, with MAHI. And here the clause will also initiate the selection process and conduct the mandatory research methodology classes as per the guidelines which are given by the UGC as well as the MAHI Mangalore. All right, so that is clause. Next you have INAS 323. So INAS 323 is also known as the Indian Naval Air Squadron, right, which is a squadron belong to the Indian Navy, right. So the first unit of the indigenously built aircraft, that is ALH, right, Mk3 aircraft, have been commissioned to the Indian Navy in the Indian Naval Air Squadron 323. So here this squadron will operate the 3 state-of-art the ALH Mk3 aircraft. It will also have a multi-role helicopter that will have the Shakti engine, that is manufactured by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited indigenously. Okay, so Mk third version of the ALH have all, you have the glass cockpit for better viewing, right. It will be used for search and the rescue operations, special operations, as well as for the coastal surveillance, right. The 16 aircraft are under procurement under this, and the aircraft are being delivered in the phased manner to the Indian Navy under this squadron. All right, so that's all for today. Thank you very much for attending this class. We'll meet again tomorrow for our next current affairs. Thank you.